On. Can everybody hear me? I know this thing's not on. Can everybody hear me back there? Because I know it's loud, that thing. Nobody's ever said they couldn't hear me before. No, but thank you so much, Anna, for asking me to speak. And since Anna introduced me, let me tell you, Anna, to me, is an inspiration. I've known her for over a quarter century here. We grew up together here, being sober. And this place, well, the place that's no longer there where the parking lot was, that was our home back then. And now this is our home. And Anna's had 2 children and sometimes worked 3 jobs. And that's a real inspiration to me. Sometimes I tell Anna, I said, you know, it takes me 3 days to equal 1 day of your sober. That's how hard she works. So I really appreciate you. And I know you don't get recognized for all that you do for Jafi and AA in general, in addition to your family life and things like that. And what she said about having long-term friends here is very important, because if you stay around here for a long time, you stay around here long enough, you're going to realize that you start to lose the people that you came in here with, which is a natural part of this thing. I mean, it's not a defeatist attitude, it's a realist attitude. And I think that every person who wants to stick around has to be prepared to stand on their own 2 feet. And, you know, it reminds me of the first tradition where it talks about AA unity, and I didn't know I was going to go into this, but sometimes I start off one way and it gets diverted into something else, so I'll talk about the first tradition where it talks about AA unity. A lot of times people mean that the unity in that tradition means that we're all supposed to get along, but that's not what it means. It means we have unity of purpose, that we agree that the 12 steps is the way of recovery. And today, with all these metaphysical and hoity-toity things that are going around and everybody's writing their own book, a lot of newcomers get confused about what the real solution is. You know, some people think they can go see Pax Prentice for $100,000 and they come back and say, I was an addict for 10 years and now I'm not. And this is a real reality. People really believe these things. But what I believe, the unity of purpose is clear, is that the 12 steps has been the way out for me. Dr. Bob and Bill, in a book called AA Comes of Age, talks about that unity, and it's sort of an unspoken undercurrent that they talked about, that after being saved from a shipwreck, everybody can be floating around in the water. And this is under the first tradition reading in the second section of AA Comes of Age. They talk about everybody's floating in the water after the shipwreck because, you know, when they wrote the book, it was very close to when the Titanic sank. That's why our big book has references of drowning men and life preservers and ships to captain's table, because whenever you heard terms like that, you were supposed to sit up and listen, because the Titanic just sank. Now, if they wrote a book today, it would be about falling buildings, because everybody remembers where they were at, and everybody knew somebody that knew somebody. So it was a very serious, and any terms connected to it. So there they are talking about floating in the water. And he said, everybody's safety in numbers floating in the water together. But what you don't see, they said, is everybody must tread their own water. That's what makes it work. And that was what they were talking about, as unity. I can't hang on to you and expect to stay afloat off your recovery. Everybody has to tread their own water underneath the surface. So we're all in here together as they were in the water. But the truth of the matter is, the ones that stay are the ones that are treading their own water. Because it's easy for me to come in here and just expect it to rub off by osmosis. You know, and we talk about this, and it's been a long-standing joke. And Sam, one of our elder members that was here when I got here, he'll always say, you know, sitting in the middle of a room, AA room, is not going to turn me into a recovered member of Alcoholics Anonymous any more than sitting in the middle of a garage is going to turn me into a Toyota. But the truth of the matter is no amount of steps that I take would ever turn me into a Toyota, whether I was sitting there or not. And I came up with one that is more apropos, is that just because I own a Walther PPK doesn't make me James Bond. Now, if I have a Walther PPK, which I just did buy, by the way, and they're very hard to get, a chrome Walther PPKS for $1,000, and I thought I was immediately going to be a secret agent. It's still in the bag at the house. I'm going to report to you. So the fact of the matter is that If I have something like that, what do I have to do? I have to go through the training necessary to become maybe not James Bond, but at least somebody who knows how to hold the thing. And AA is exactly the same way. I need to learn and take my training here and learn what to do to be able to function. And I wanted to start off with a little joke that has something to do with that. There's a guy that's doing his first solo parachute jump. Now, if you've ever done parachutes or you've seen it on TV, you know you got to jump out with a dude behind you for a while. You know, they call that tandem. But if you've done enough training, they'll let you jump out on your own. And then you're on your own, you got the thing, and you're up to what you do, you know, which I will never do. And whenever anybody asks me to go to parachute, I always pull the big book quote out of it. You know I'm going to do that. You know me, I'm going to do that. Because it says in the big book, God would like us to have our head in the clouds, but our feet should be firmly planted on the earth. That is where our fellow travelers are. So I'll go on and pull that out on them, and there ain't much left to say, right? Okay, we'll ask somebody else to go parachuting, but not Mike, okay? And Bill W. said it's okay. So I got an excuse from him. So the thing about it is he's jumping out on his first parachute jump, right? So he's gone through his training. He's got his altimeter. He's jumping down. At the right altitude or speed, he pulls his ripcord and nothing happens. Okay, well, just like in AA, while we do these things over and over and over on a daily basis, even when we don't think we need it, why do we do these things? These boring, redundant things like read how it works every single meeting. I mean, I don't know the last time I've actually listened to the words of it. I mean, I've heard it 10,000 times. Why do we do these things? Because subconsciously I need to continue to hear it. Subconsciously, and I need to continue to do this training. So he was going through his training. He pulls his ripcord and nothing happens. He doesn't panic because he's gone through his training. And he knows what he has to do is cut away that chute and pull the reserve chute. That's what they taught him to do. He practiced enough. And in that moment of need, just like AA does, it comes to my aid when a crisis comes. And instead of going for a drink, I knew I needed to talk to somebody in recovery, somebody like this lady right here who's been around a long time. I need to go to a meeting. These things just come up naturally. So for me to sit here after all these years and claim that it's natural for me to want to drink is not only a lie, it's disingenuous, isn't it? And it's not giving the newcomer the message that they need, is it? Although you have heard old-timers say that, and what that's called is fake humility. They're saying that shit not because they believe it, but because they think by saying it, it makes them sound humble. Well, I'm not going to be guilty of that, because that's one of the things Dr. Bob and the good old-timers said he hated. He saw a lot of disingenuous stuff going on, and people cowing down to saying how wonderful their life is for fear of people thinking they're arrogant or setting themselves up to drink. When the fact of the matter is that newcomers do need to hear that we're safe and protected. Newcomers do need to hear that we're no longer in one place, we're in another. Newcomers do need to hear that it's no longer natural for me to want to drink. What's natural is for me to be in a meeting. And if you feel that way, maybe God's restored your sanity too. Because I didn't fall off a rainbow in here, but a rainbow is exactly what I found. Nobody promised me a rose garden, but a rose garden is exactly what I found, because what is a rose garden? It has the pretty flower, but what also does it have? That's right. Because see, just because I get sober doesn't mean that everything's going to be perfect. If every day was a sunny day, what would a sunny day be? You know, it's going through challenges in recovery, in emerging with a better way of life emerges when these things are overcome, as it talks about on 117. These challenges that come up in life become part of my education, and I'll be learning how to live, and I won't let them drag me down, it talks about. So his second chute is fixing to come out. He pulls his ripcord. I'm coming back to the story now. That's why this story works so good, because as I tell the story, I can interject what I want to talk about, and then I come back to the story, but it's fixing to get exciting. If it's not already. I got a little excited when this water fell. I was like, what's going on over here?
It's leaking.
Is it leaking? Okay. We'll fix that.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. crisis averted. See, training kicks in. All right, he pulls his second ripcord and nothing happens. Okay, now we've got a big problem, right? So that no amount of training is going to materialize a third shoot. He's in big trouble, right? I mean, this guy, no amount of training. He's falling at terminal velocity, however how long fast that is. There may be somebody in here that knows that parachutes, I think it's 211 miles an hour or something like that. That's the fastest you can fall. So rest on the oasis that you won't hit the ground going 1,000. You can only go a certain speed. So if you can learn to survive that, you're going to be okay. I will not do it, because the big book said, but somebody will try. As a matter of fact, there was this guy, didn't he just get through jumping out of a plane with no parachute and landed on a net? I saw this fool. You go look it up on YouTube. It's bizarre. I was like, what an idiot, dude. So anyway, so he pulls this, you know, and AA's like that. Why should I tempt Providence and do very stupid things in recovery just because I feel like I can do it? Like, let me go to the old crack house and see how my buddies are doing. But you know, 101 talks about we should be able to go anywhere free men can go. But what's the interesting thing about that page is about the time that I feel like I could go to some of those old places, they don't have the same pull on me that they used to have. You know the pull I'm talking about. I mean, it's happening at the club, right? Wherever the club was, not the club. My friends in low places didn't go to the club. We went to the club. But it was always happening at the club, right? And you know what was the weirdest thing? I swear it happened 1,000 times. I'd rush to get to the club, bypassing any responsibility I may have, getting money I shouldn't be spending. I'm going to the club. And as soon as I got there, it just left. And I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about the excitement that I found in looking back in recovery. The excitement of the allure of the lifestyle and the conviviality, companionship, and colorful imagination that I was looking for. I was always searching for something that was just out of my reach. And that was the old life. You know, I'm not going to say that there wasn't some good times. And a lot of times you'll hear people say, my best day using is worse. Somebody help me with that. My best day, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But you know what? I did have some good times out there. And I think it's also disingenuous to say I didn't have some good times out there. So my worst day in recovery is better than my best day using may be a little disingenuous. If that was true, then why is it burned in my mind to go back and do that stuff? If it was so bad out there, always, and I never had any good times, why was it such a beast to get past it? The fact of the matter is there was some good times out there. And it was implanted in my mind what alcohol in solid or liquid form did for me, not what it did to me. It wants me to remember what it did for me. It wants me to remember those good days. And there were some manageable good days, let's be honest. If you never had one, you're the exception, not the rule. We're not supposed to talk about it. But there were some good days out there. Why is it that I was so hooked if there was no good days? It was because it worked for a minute. That's why I was hooked. But like it says in the book, is a burst of a vision for you, not so in those last days, right? You know, the 4 horsemen and whatnot. Seeking companionship and approval at sordid places. And I'll tell you an interesting thing whenever that topic comes up in a meeting, and it dawned on me a number of years ago when it talks about we sought out sordid people in sordid places seeking companionship and approval. I think that, and I think that I can speak, I think if I ask anybody in here, they would give the same answer. If you could describe when I was using, to write on a piece of paper, the most sordid place, this is back when I was using, the most sordid place that I could imagine, and write it on a piece of paper, I would describe this room. I'm going to explain why. It would be a room that I've got to sit for an hour, not getting drunk or high, with a bunch of people that more times than not are talking about God. I would have considered that to be the worst place on earth to have to sit for an hour. And if I'm the only one, so be it, but I know for a fact I'm not. You wouldn't have found me in this place, I'm just telling you. There's no way. I mean, even as a child, they make me go to church, and I was a fidgety kid, and they make me sit still, and I'm like, this is torture, I can't do this. But what's interesting and ironical about what I'm talking about, and the comparison is that what's really interesting is that most sordid place that I could have described when I was out there, this place, is the only place that I ever found that salvation and conviviality, companionship, and colorful imagination. So it was that most sordid place that I would have told you is the only place, the very place that I found that gave me the safety and comfort that I was always chasing for at the club or wherever that I never could find. And I can only come to these kind of realizations after being here for a while. You can't have a few weeks and see the things that I'm talking about because you haven't experienced the true gravity of the comfort and neutrality, that the safety of this program that it gives you. Because just being off the sauce is just a beginning. It's when I get off the sauce and I pick back up my life. And I make some of those some days, 2 days in recovery. And I'll explain what that is. Now, believe me, I'm getting back to my boy. The second shoot just came out, nothing happened. I mean, I'm just putting that right over here, right? We're going to get back to him, because I know all of y'all are on the edge of your seat wondering what happens to your boy. And he's wishing he had that quote out of the big book right about now, and he hadn't gone to parachute school. But the thing about it is that this way of life has enabled me to make some days 2 days in that, I was a king of, alcohol and drugs are going to take some of my things from me. Whether I hock it at the pawn shop, my old guitar, whether I put that old hobby that I used to love to do up on the shelf because drugs and alcohol have taken priority. How many of us have stopped doing something that we had a dream in our life because of that stuff? And it's only after some calm reflection that I realized, wow, I did stop doing what I always wanted to be a fireman or whatever the story was. Everybody's story is different, but my point is this. I come in recovery, and you'll hear these voices that tell you, easy does it, baby. You've had it hard. Take yourself a break. Just stay sober today. Don't do any of that stuff that may put you in a state where you're going to drink. And I say, hell no. I say start back to school immediately. Because that feeling of structure and that feeling of being back on the path of life has been instrumental in me staying. So the some days, 2 days is that when I get in recovery, I've observed so many people. Someday I'll do that. Someday I'll go get that car again, that guitar again. Someday I'll pick back up that hobby. But here's the thing. Unless I make a someday, a 2 day in recovery, it never becomes a 2 day. Unless I do something, someday never arrives. That's my point. And just as an example, an insignificant example of one of my some days, and this is before Dancing with the Stars. It was before cell phones, too. Anna remembers when you had to run home in the car just to see if somebody left you a message on that little cassette on your answering machine. Okay? So, I didn't grow up in let's text in a meeting and check Facebook. Okay? So we come from a different time, but I have adapted. I'm a Facebook warrior, babe. No, I'm just joking. I'm not really. But I know that I'm not, because I don't judge my self-worth by the number of likes I get. And I've seen people consumed with that. I've also seen these devices make people hide off inside them and not have personal interaction. I've seen people hide off inside them and show the very meeting that they come to save their lives an amount of disrespect that it boggles the mind. Because they act like they really don't give a shit about being here. You sit in a room sometimes and everybody's head is down looking at their phone and you're going, where am I at? Maybe it's because I grew up in a different time here. Maybe because the old timers have said, show some fucking respect, Mike. You're not going to get recovery till you start showing respect. Maybe some of these old school things that are passé need to be brought back. I don't know. But the thing about it is that one of the ones that, like I said, inconsequential. You notice, by the way, that I haven't shared one war story. How many times have you gone to a speaker meeting and somebody tells 55 minutes of getting drunk and it's 5 till and they go, oops, time's up. See, if I've been around here this long and I have to share with you and brag with you about how I drunk and got high and messed up my life, I don't need to ever come to a meeting again. So whenever I speak now, I never talk about war stories because I have enough of these stories. I don't have to qualify myself to you. I hope that you realize that why would this guy stick around here for over half his life, going on 3 decades, if he doesn't need to be here? So one of my inconsequential some days, right, was I want to take Fred Astaire dance lessons. I passed the thing next to Pier 1 Imports in Vestavia forever. Someday, oh, wouldn't that be cool? Right? No, I know you know. Because you know Marietta when we used to go ballroom dance at the Club. That's right. Little story people don't know. You know, the Club, the dance floor up at the Club, if you've ever seen it, has lights under it. It has lights like on the movie Saturday Night Fever, the lights under the floor. And that's where Saturday Night Fever got the idea from the lighted floor in the movie, was from our The Club. That's why they have a movie poster when you walk in. There's a little Birmingham trivia for you. I know you came to hear that. So there I am going right by, and I decide to pull in one day to Fred Astaire, and I laid down my money and I took my little lessons for 6 months. And that's a small little example of what I'm talking about. Now, I'm not trying to share with you that the end-all, be-all of my recovery is because I took 6 months of Fred Astaire about 18 years ago. I'm giving you a very innocent, simple example of what I'm talking about how something I wanted can be pushed away under the heading of someday, and the value of being able to say that I made a someday a today. And share it with a newcomer, because they have their own some days. You can make no mistake. So what happened to my guy? He's fallen. What happened to him? Is he in trouble yet? Parachute guy. He's in trouble, right? I'm seeing who's listening. This is not my first time to do this. So he's fallen at terminal velocity, right? He pulled out his second chute. Nothing happened. He's in big trouble. No amount of training can fix it. Now suspend disbelief just for a moment. That he's able to pass somebody going the other way just as fast. Somebody's going the other way just as fast as he's going. And they're able to have a small conversation as they pass. You got to suspend disbelief. We're in the Matrix, okay? All right. And they're stopped and they're saying something and he says, hey man, do you know anything about parachutes?
Oh, man.
And the dude going the other way says, no, man. Do you know anything about lighting gas stoves? Anna's heard that before. She's not laughing. Thank you for the smile, though, baby. I love you. I love you. It's true. So the truth of the matter is, I know it appears that I'm comfortable up here, but I'm actually shaking in my boots. Not. So the thing about it is that what does that story have to do with what we're here? Yeah, it was funny and everything. But the truth of the matter is, and it's like what we talk about, and it's like one of the stories in the 12 and 12 under the fourth tradition. It talks about we need to stick to what we know. Because that group that had the 61 rules, that had financial advising on the top floor and relationship counselors on the second floor, and they're going to have a couple of AA meetings on the bottom floor just to fill it in. Well, they all got drunk. And that's where we get Rule 62, don't take yourself too damn seriously, which is what they mailed to Bill after they all got drunk. when Bill let them do that. And they realized maybe we should stick to our primary purpose instead of getting into all these other things. So the reason that I tell the story, amongst the reasons that I'm able to stop and interject things I want to talk about AA, is that I may not know about gas stoves, and I may not know about parachutes, but what I am here to talk about, I do know a little bit about. And that is, I'm Michael W. Smith, and I'm an alcoholic. And the disease of alcoholism. And that's what we're here to talk about. Because a lot of people may be from different walks of life. There may be some lawyers or CPAs, which I have become in recovery, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Not because I want to talk about what I've done, but because of things in childhood can affect us long term. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about a couple of things that happened in my childhood. A lot of times people will come up with superfluous, meaningless information from their childhood that has no bearing on AA. I've got a couple of things that have direct bearing. That's why I'm going to share about it just a tad, because I think that's important, and it gives some perspective into my life. It lets people know me a little more than they would in a regular meeting, because I don't usually share these two particular things in a meeting, because the topic is never these two things. So one of the instances from my childhood that has a direct bearing on what we're here to talk about is that there used to be these stickers that you would buy when I was a kid. They were called Wacky Pack stickers. And it doesn't matter what kind of sticker it was. It was the sticker you'd buy. It was a pack with 5 or 6 stickers in it and a piece of Topps bubble gum. You know what this is talking about. It could be football cards, whatever it was. You remember what I'm talking about. All right, so those are the stickers that I liked. All right, well, you all know if you ever did cards of any kind, whether it be Cinderella cards or football cards or baseball cards, at the bottom right-hand corner it would say something like 50 of 200. There was a set of these things. All right, and I was absolutely, as a child, before I ever used anything, absolutely 100% obsessed about getting the entire set. I could not stand it. I could have 20 of one. I had the numbers. I had them all laid out. And if I was missing one, something was not right. Now, why am I telling the story? Because it's exactly what we suffer from. It's the disease of addiction. It's the things aren't right unless they're all in place. And what was interesting is I would try so hard to get that full set, and I would achieve that full set. Because I used to get a pack of cards for 5 cents, and I got 25 cents a week as an allowance. That tells you how long ago that was, and that also tells you that I wasn't some spoiled brat. So I wisely spent my entire allowance on 5 packs of Wacky Packs. So I have my priorities right. But I would get the full set, and here's the thing, and it's just like this. This place that we search for, this perfect nirvana of drunkenness, if there is such a thing, the doctor calls it the effect produced by alcohol. I strive to get that. But just like the club, it's something that I was always trying to get, but it would always elude me because I would end up going past it and getting myself in trouble. And the set of cards, when I would get the set of cards, I would be okay for about 10 minutes, and life would be wonderful. And then, in about 15 minutes, I started thinking about that next set, and I was consumed again. I know some of y'all know the feeling I'm talking about. Never quite being okay, searching for something that I could never find, and I could never put a name to it. I could never put a name to it until I got here. And we've talked about some of those things. And what that story is I had an addictive personality before I got here. And that's what the steps are designed to show me, that not only did I have that, I had character defects in me before I ever took a drink. And that's why the 4-step says we went back through our life. You know, I got to go back before I started drinking to see if I had some character defects. Oh, nobody had a resentment before we took a drink? Please. What planet are you living on? And I've heard people tell their sponsees, oh, only write down the ones you're angry at now. Don't worry about any of that other stuff. Let's don't get too serious about the steps now. Never mind it's life or death. I mean, don't get me started. I won't get started. There's some pet peeves I have after being here for this long. But what the steps are designed to show me, just what this story is designed to show me. Not that I made it up, it's a true story. I still have those stickers in my toy chest downstairs with my first little Franklin ball glove that's now this big. Can't even fit my fingers in it. But this toy box has all my little kid stuff in it. The little bat that's this long, that it was so big back then, right? And the stickers stacked up in big rubber bands around them. I still have my stickers. I should put a picture on Facebook. Yeah, that's what I should do. Facebook. My God, let me check it. No, I'll withstand the temptation. Okay. The next thing in my childhood is going to be the fact that I was an only child. Who cares, Mike? Well, the reason that I say it has bearing is because this is an Altoid, by the way. Nobody get triggered, right? And if you wondered why I held it in my lips, about 18 or 20 years ago, a girl said I had bad breath, so I've had them in my pocket ever since. That's the power you ladies have over us, okay? I've been fighting bad breath since the old girl told me. We laugh because we know it's true. Y'all have all the power. And half the money, I hear. No, but the truth of the matter is, that's an old divorce joke. All of something and half of something else. But I digress. So the thing about it is the second thing is about me being an only child. And in Dr. Bob's story, he says he was his only child. And the quote he says after that was that being an only child engendered the selfishness that played such an integral part in bringing about my alcoholism. Now, he said that. I believe it. I've lived it. And what that means is that I was an only child. The universe did revolve around me. I didn't have to share my toys, my Wacky Pack stickers, or my parents. So I came by my selfishness honestly. So did Dr. Bob. But what is the lesson that the steps tell me? Regardless of whether I came by it honestly, that's no reason to just rely on that simple fact and say, oh, I came by it honestly, so y'all just have to be with my selfishness, principles before personalities. Which we are pros at flipping the script on that statement, which is not supposed to mean principles for personalities. You have to accept my bullshit, which is what my disease wants me to think. It means I need to align myself with principles. So the reason that story is apropos is because it doesn't matter whether or not my selfishness came by honestly. I still have to deal with it in the steps. I just have to work a little harder because my universe, like I said, did revolve around me. But whether it be anything like drinking or doing anything else, I had to have a sponsor to learn how to do those things. And I need a sponsor to learn how to do these things. The last thing I want to talk about, and I mentioned about doing things in recovery, accomplishing things, I wanted to put that on the shelf and come back because there's something happened in my childhood that I never understood why I did those things. It's something my father said to me when I was like 6 or 7, maybe even younger. You know, and I know a lot of people have had it bad, but, you know, and it's just like today I've been dealing with this cough, and I know if my voice sounds a little raspy, I've been dealing with this crud, you know, and I'm thinking to myself, it should be over by now, you know, and my throat's messing with me, and of course I'm up at 2 in the morning on WebMD getting a PhD in throat. You know, if you've ever done that, I mean, you know, I know everything about the throat now. You know, and I'm thinking, what is going on? And I did not put together cause and effect. And that's what I'm talking about, cause and effect. And I did not realize, dummy, Mike, instead of getting in a tizzy, our book talks about we become more efficient. God gave us brains to use. Calm down, Mike. Let's think about what's going on here. Do you really have throat cancer? Because that's what I get to think. A headache is brain cancer, right? I know everything about the brain. I had a headache one night. I got up with them. If I'm the only one, so be it. I'm not a hypochondriac, I promise. I'm also not as pretty as I was when I came in. Am I, Anna? Close. I still have that leather jacket, though. She'll tell you about the leather jacket. Nothing sinister, nothing untoward. Me and Anna have always been friends. There's no leather jackets or chaps in our story. She came close, though. That's why she's still sober. She didn't land it. That's what happened. Truth be told. I was a scoundrel, I'll admit it. It's true. It is very true. It was medieval how much of a scoundrel I was early on in recovery. Of course, I was early on, so it didn't matter. 13th step did not apply. I was young, so it don't matter, right? Or does it? Try outrunning that rep for the next 15 or 20, and you'll find out maybe it does matter. So, cause and effect. What I didn't realize by studying about the throat was the simple fact that last Wednesday, I went and spoke in Chattanooga in one of the last remaining smoking meetings on the planet. And I was sitting in that cloud for a whole hour talking this way. And I come home talking about I got the crud, wondering about my throat, and it didn't even dawn on me. Hey, dummy. I mean, I quit smoking back in 2000, right? So I spent an hour talking in a smoke-filled room. I'm supposed to be raspy, man. Cause and effect. And if I'm not careful, I'll miss it. And that's why I'm going to tell a story about something my father said and the effect it had on me throughout life. Just like the smoky room, if I'm not careful, I'll miss it and not put two and two together. The steps ask me to put two and two together. Cause and effect. Because I want to blame it just on the alcohol, right? Doesn't the steps demand that I go farther than that? Doesn't it say I got to get down to causes and conditions? There's only one step that talks about alcohol. The rest of them are about getting to the real deal. Why did I feel uncomfortable? Because I didn't have the full set of wacky packs. That's where I need to get. Why did I always chase after the thing at the club, not her, the excitement, and I could never catch it because it was an illusion. I was being driven by things that weren't true. So I'm in the garage with my father, and he always made me watch him fix things. He fixed Phantom jets in Vietnam, so he always made me watch him fix things because he said, son, when you get older, I want you to be able and not scared to try to fix something. Because you can go broke paying somebody to come to your house every 5 seconds. So we've taken dryers apart and all these things. And he would always make me sit right there and hand him the tools. So we're in the garage, we're fixing something. I have no idea what we're fixing. I can't even remember. I can't remember the tool, but I remember exactly in the spot of the very garage that I still live in the house. They're gone now. I live in the house. I know the very spot in the garage that he said this. And that was more years ago than I care to admit. So he says, son, give me this tool. And I don't know what I did. I knocked something over. I don't know what I did, but he was very quick with a harsh word, which I can be guilty of too. I mean, I got a samurai sword. And he said, after I messed something up, I don't know, he goes, son, don't you know you fuck up more than you fix? Now, I'm not trying to make you feel sorry for me, please. I mean, that is nothing compared to some of the stories I've heard in AA, okay? But we're talking about cause and effect. And that shit started bouncing around in my skull. Is that true? Oh, my God. What does that mean? You fuck up more than you fix. That's over 50%. I mean, you're in big trouble, right? You can never get ahead with that. It's 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, baby, for life. This is what Dad said. This is God himself. When you're a child, your parents, if they're worth a shit, and believe me, I've heard stories, there's not worth a shit parents, okay? I know this. But my father's one of the greatest men I've ever known. And I've never used the program as an excuse or a club over his head to go back now and say, hey, Dad, after all the things he's done for me, and be so petty as to say, hey, Daddy, do you remember when you said that to me when I was 6? I would be the biggest asshole. that ever walked the earth. But the question is, can I learn from what he did and see how it's translated in my life? Doesn't the book talk about, I need to be careful about being the hasty and foolish martyr that would needlessly sacrifice others to save myself from the alcoholic pit? Why do I think it says that? It says, be judicious in what you're doing with the steps. It would crush my father. He's like old now. And if I say he's old, it's big trouble, buddy. Okay? It's like 75. Of course, I still feel 18. People my age are old. I'm like, wait a minute, Mike. You need to check yourself before you wreck yourself. So why have I spent my entire life in recovery, going back to school, getting degree after degree, 2 4-year degrees, 2 master's degrees, a doctorate, a postdoctoral in tax, becoming a lawyer in recovery, passing the bar the first time, becoming a CPA in recovery, passing the CPA exam in the first try. The kind of pressure that I put on myself to accomplish all those things in recovery, which I think is important for newcomers to hear, that we are not broken. We can do things. And that was the voice not only that I had to battle against when I got here. Admitting myself as an alcoholic meant that I was broken in every way and I can't do shit. Why try? Give myself a break, baby. Someday, you see what I'm saying? How these things begin to roll on themselves. And the next thing you know, you've sat here 5, 10 years and all you're claiming is, I got to stay sober today. That's all I've done. What a tragedy. What a disservice to the program I'm doing. But I'm not saying overachieve like my dumb ass did. Right? That's stupid. Nobody does that much. I have 30 letters after my name. That's insane. But you know what? I traded Wacky Pack stickers for letters. I traded Wacky Pack stickers for degrees on a wall, and I have an entire wall. So what is it saying? Why did I tell the story about my father? I spent a lifetime trying to prove those words that my father said to me at 6 years old wrong. That's my point. Cause and effect. If I don't get down to cause and effect, I will not understand who I am. Cause and effect. I've got a raspy throat because I stayed an hour and a half in the most smoky room you can possibly imagine. The room that used to be down there when we were kids. Back when every AA meeting was a smoking meeting. I still think it should be smoking meeting. When I think of AA meeting, I think of coffee and cigarettes. You got to give us something. What's up? I mean, I think that thing alone affected the success rate of AA. Who wants to sit in a room and not be able to smoke cigarettes? Hell, I quit and I still want to smoke cigarettes. I quit and I still want to be in a room and smoking because that's where I feel comfortable, because that's where I grew up here. So my point is this, cause and effect. He said I fucked up more than I fixed, so I spent a lifetime trying to prove that wrong. The steps demand that I look at cause and effect. And see, we didn't have much time together today. What you'll find is if you've been in recovery a long time, you'll find that this hour can go by so fast. And there's zero need for me to talk about war stories, because I have enough recovery stories to talk about. Because that's really what the newcomers need to hear, if we're going to get honest. Because they certainly didn't come to hear me try to brag and one-up each other and get the most messed up person award, which I've heard in meetings. No, I smoked up 2 houses. I mean, they'll go down the road trying to one-up each other. I'm like, what are we trying to do here? This is not about describing the walls of the ditch. This is not about talking about the ditch. There's a little bit of talking about maybe how I got in it, cause and effect. But it's talking about how to get out and stay out of the ditch. And what do I have to learn to stay out of the ditch? And what do I have to do to get out of the ditch? So, time is almost up. So what I'm going to do, what I always do, is I recap. I'm going to recap what I've said, because when my father, the great man, right? He used to make me at 16 years old go to a group called Toastmasters and sit in there with all these old men with suits on and learn how to public speak. He said, son, someday you'll need that shit. And I'm like, this sucks. But he's right. So now I'm very comfortable up here. As a matter of fact, the bigger the crowd, the better. So the thing about it is that I'm going to recap. That's what they taught me to do. They say, because nobody remembers what you said in the middle. You have to say, this is what I said. You have to say, this is what I'm going to say. And then you say it. And then at the end you say, this is what I said. Because they can't remember the middle. I have to bring you back and then you remember everything. So what have I talked about? What I talked about from the very beginning was using the story of the parachute guy as a vehicle to talk about how I need my training that will come to my aid. I talked about the unity of AA and what it's supposed to mean, that we realize that we have unity of purpose, that the 12 steps is the way out. I talked about a couple of things from my childhood that have direct bearing on what we're here to talk about, which is even if I have my selfishness and I come by it honestly, it doesn't mean I can use that as an excuse to be a selfish bastard, which is what Dr. Bob talked about. I talked about the Wacky Pack stickers and how I was consumed by the addictive personality and the allure of the right in front of me, and I chased it even before I took a drink. So the character defects were present even before I drank, and it's probably why I did drink, and we've always heard in meetings, drinking alcohol in solid or liquid form probably kept me from blowing my brains out long enough for me to get here. But I've never claimed that I wanted to blow my brains out. Sometimes I hear people say that stuff in meetings. Oh, I had gun oil, and I'm thinking, please, that's some of that fake humility. Because the people that talk about it are the ones that don't do it. The ones you just hear they did it and they never said a word, that's the ones that do it. So I've never been wanting to fall into that, trying to brag. But the thing about it is we talked about cause and effect. We talked about the raspy throat and the smoking room. And we talked about what my father told me, fuck up more than you fix, and how it filtered into what I did later in life. Thank God I had recovery. I don't know if I could have been able to battle the voices that my father, that voice that my father gave me, if I hadn't been in recovery. I would not have been able to battle it. It would have solidified in my mind with active alcoholism. I would have constantly proved that he was right by messing up my life, and it would have changed the course. I may not even be here anymore. Can you see how in the wrong set of circumstances, those little words, I fuck up more than I fix, could have put me in a grave? But because of recovery, it gave me the opportunity, and I do want to share this for every newcomer that's in here. And I should have done it before, but I'm going to take, even though time has run out, I'm going to take 3 minutes to give the newcomer the cap of that story to let everybody in here know that they have what it takes. And I think that's so important because I can't leave this story on a story where I did all that shit. And I didn't mean to do it that way. But let me just lay this down. Every newcomer, and there's some newcomers in a treatment center here today, every newcomer, like myself, is wondering, do they have what it takes to do this thing? Because maybe they've had several attempts and they've stumbled. And there's an old joke by Richard Pryor that really solidifies this home. And he's on stage. It's an old comedian. Some of you know what I'm talking about. He's on stage, and I used to listen to him when I was a kid. I still have plastic records. And he's on stage, and he's playing a guy who's trying to get a job. And he's playing the guy that's looking at the resume, and he says, Mr. Pryor, we don't know if you're responsible. We don't know if you're what we're looking for. We don't know if you're dependable. And in his best drunken voice, he plays the other side, and he says, what do you mean I'm not dependable? For the last 5 years, I've had a $500 a day drug habit. I ain't missed a payment. Okay? Now, the reason that story works, the reason that story is reminiscent of what I'm trying to say is that every single person in here can be with the fact that he didn't miss that payment. That we're known for not making payments. This ain't about making a payment. Okay, we're known for that. I'm talking about he did what he had to do to get his DOC, right? That amount of energy that he had to expel to do what he needed to do, he did on a daily basis without fail. Here's the message I have for you, and Dr. Bob has the same message because he said it in his story in different words. He says if you put half the zeal into this that you put into being out there, your Heavenly Father will not let you down. So my message from Richard Pryor, that joke is the vehicle and the analogy to bring forth the simple point that there was a reservoir of energy inside me. The energy that I expend searching out those wacky packs. The energy I would expend to find the club, no matter what. The energy I would expend to do what I needed to do. If I come in here, that reservoir of energy is still there. I just have to pick it up and use it. So anybody in here can accomplish anything I've talked about in this talk. Because if I can do these things, anybody in here can do these things. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. There is nothing special about me. That's my point. That's why I wanted to end on this. Because there's newcomers in here that wonder, do they have what it takes? And that story of Richard Pryor proves it, that energy is there if I'm willing to use it. The sad truth of it all is that so many people refuse to use it. And I'll wrap it all the way around to the beginning. They think they can sit in this meeting and it rubs off by osmosis. And then they say AA didn't work. So before, when Dad said, I fuck up more than I fix, before, when I was using, it was 1 step forward and 3 steps back. Today, like I've said, in our book Promises, certain trials and low spots, life still shows up. Rose garden has its thorns. Workout's part of my education. Now, it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And that, my friends, is called progress. That's what this is supposed to be about. Not perfection. I mean, we can put too much pressure on ourselves, and we can take the joy right out of life. It can suck it right out of life. I think sometimes I look back in my history and recovery, as long as I've been here, and even though I think it played a big part in help keeping me sober with the structure and reward system that academia provides, I think I put too much pressure on myself, and I missed out on a lot of fun. But you know what? My past is my past. Learn from my past. Learn from the voices that can be there from the very beginning. Learn from the story about the wacky patch. You may have something from your childhood. Learn about causes and conditions, because that's the things that's going to keep me here. Because, and I tell newcomers this all the time, what brought me here is not going to be what keeps me here. What brought me here was threats, and she's going to leave me, and they're going to fire me, and they're going to lock me up. But see, that stuff is quickly rectified in about 6 months. You get your license back, she's let you back in the house, all the slips are signed, judge says case dismissed, and people think life is okay. No, that's an illusion. I haven't worked the steps yet. So what brought me here is not what keeps me here. We don't do well with threats. That's what brought me here. Terribleness and threats. What keeps me here is the good things that this program offers. The wonderful peace that I could not have even spotted when I got here. This sordid place that I would have described out there is the only place that I have found the true conviviality, companionship, and colorful imagination. I know I've gone over a little bit, but I haven't talked about war stories. I've told you something about me that you certainly would not have known from sharing in meetings. And I've tried to tie everything to what we're here to talk about. And I'm so glad that you came out. And I want to end with something that I always end with every time I share, and I think it's very important, and this also goes back to the newcomer, because step 12 talks about having had something, you've got to say something. I mean, it almost demands it right there in black and white. So, I've had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, and I'll pass.